Welcome, everybody, to Greater Life, Greater Impact. Today, we're talking all about choices, how to know whether or not you're making the right choices in your life. And this also has everything to do with tapping into your higher self. It has everything to do with those four main connections that we always talk about in here. And I feel like a broken record, but um, especially in regards to your health. Every illness has something underneath the surface of it, something underneath that is telling you that you are disconnected from God, you're disconnected from yourself in some way, you're disconnected from a truth or the truth, and you're also disconnected from another person. So when you have health challenges, it's always good to take a look at all four of those connections to make sure that there's not stuff going on underneath the surface that is unresolved, that's causing dissonance or like a disturbance inside of your energetic body. Because when you resolve the spiritual roots to your illnesses and to your problems, to like this stuff will show up in your body, it'll show up in your bank account, it'll show up in your relationships, it'll show up everywhere. And when you store unresolved data sitting on your hard drive, that stuff comes with biological consequences, and it can make you sick as well. Sorry, I'm distracted because I have to bring people in. Hang on one second. Okay. So, but today we're going to talk all about how to make right choices. Before we get into that, I'm going to take you guys through a process where you can tap into your higher self, because that's the best way to learn. I tell my clients this all the time. Like, if you don't know how to regularly and consistently tap into your higher self and use that for navigating purposes, it's like letting a 2-year-old drive a car down the freeway. Letting your intellect navigate you through this mortal dimension is like letting a 2-year-old drive the vehicle down the freeway. It doesn't have the comprehension, it doesn't have the ability, it doesn't know where it's going, it doesn't know how to steer the vehicle. It's critical for spiritual awakening that you learn how to tap into your higher self on a regular basis and put yourself there intentionally over and over and over. So I'm going to take you through just a shortened process. Go ahead and just slow your breathing down for a minute, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Whew. I need to do it too. Drop your shoulders on the exhale. So when you breathe in nice and deep. Pretend that you're breathing in liquid light, just tons and tons and tons of light. You can have eyes opened or closed. On the exhale, I just want you to empty your body of all tension. So you're going to look for pockets of tension. So wherever you store tension in your body, that's where you're storing data that's sitting on your hard drive that needs to be processed or resolved, data that you probably don't want to look at. So pay attention. Pay attention to the muscles behind your eyes and in your face and in your jaw, your throat, the rib cage. Breathe slowly, slow the breath down, slow your thinking down. And you can have thoughts, like if the thoughts come in, bring them into the body and invite them to drop down to the base of the spine. And just keep breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Nice, big, deep breaths, preferably longer on the exhale. And just like a balloon expands when you breathe into it, I want you to imagine your energy inside of your body expanding as you breathe out. Dropping your shoulders, relaxing your face. You can roll your head around on your neck if you want to just open up space there. Shrug your shoulders, opening up more space and letting go of tension. So that is the goal, letting go of as much tension as you can so that you can tap into that peaceful place inside of you. Now take all of your awareness and your attention and go inside, go within. If you want, you can picture like a column of light going through your body from the top of your head to the base of the spine. It also extends down the legs and goes out through the bottoms of your feet and into the earth. So just picture that beam of light coming in from heaven. It's infinite. and going down through out of your feet into Mother Earth. Just breathe into that. Put your attention down below the heart. Every time you breathe out, drop a little bit more. Now, if you can, take your awareness all the way to the base of the spine or lower. I like going to the base of the spine because it is a connecting point to your higher self. That's the Kundalini point. So many people believe that that is where spirit and flesh meet, is at the base of the spine. So it's also the root chakra, which is about safety and stability and foundation, like it's your foundation, right? So breathe into your foundation. If you have to, put an imaginary nose at the base of the spine or under your feet and breathe into your foundation. Good. I can feel you guys already starting to release a lot of tension, a lot of gunk. Breathing out, expanding. So now the next step is to go into expansion. So feel your energy, feel your essence going out into the corners, the floor, the walls, the ceiling, whatever space that you're occupying. Fill up the space that you're in. If you're in your car, fill that space up. If you're in your house, fill up the room. And just allow that light, pretend that your essence is light. It is actually light. And the properties of light, like light travels infinitely. It doesn't stop. There is no end. So think about that light extending out from your body, from that anchored point inside of you, going out. If you have to, you can even breathe out and push that light out. You can push it up, you can push it down, you can push it out, and just feel your energy expanding out in every direction, above you, below you, in front of you, behind you. Keep that breath going nice and slow. Slow your thoughts down. Bring your thoughts in and bring them to that connecting point at the base of the spine. If you have to, put your brain at the base of the spine and think from the body. Let your body do the thinking. Let your body do the processing. Your body can process 40 million bits of information per second, and your brain only about 40. So we definitely want to use the parts of us that are much more efficient at processing and learning today. So now that you're in, you guys are more centered, you're a little bit more stable and peaceful and calm. Just go ahead and notice. Notice that feeling. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to just feel the stillness inside of you. Go inside. And as you're in there feeling that stillness, I want you to think in your mind, who is in here? Who is occupying the space of this vessel? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Keep asking that question until you can get to the point where you can shift that over into I am. And you can just change the language of it. I am. And just be. If you have done any private mentoring with me, you know that I'm constantly saying, just be. Get out of your head, get into your body, tap into your higher self, and just be. There is no doing in there. There's no to-do list in there. There's just being. When you learn how to operate from this higher place inside of you, you'll make better decisions. You'll be more wise. You'll have much more intelligence available to you. You'll do the right thing. You'll be on your right path. You will make decisions that propel you forward into your ascension and awakening. You won't have to think about it. You'll just operate in the space of who you are as a being. a divine being. Keep breathing, keep your awareness inside, dropped down all the way to the base of the spine and spread out. Okay. So, the first question, actually, before we get into questions, before we get into this learning, I want you to just say to yourself, remember this. Body, remember this. So that just in an instant, you can grab that feeling as you're driving down the road or as you're standing in your kitchen, cooking dinner, and all the kids need you, and everyone needs help with their homework, and someone's crying, and your husband walks in through the door, and somebody else is on the phone, and there's just chaos going on. You can grab that feeling of peace and go there immediately in those moments of chaos. You don't want to stay in a place of chaos for too long, because if you choose to do that, and it is a choice, you choose to stay in chaos too long, it will yank you off your soul's path. It will make you sick. It comes with biological effects and consequences. It can drain your bank account and your life's energy, your life force energy. So you don't want to be in that space for too long. It's important that you quickly recognize when you go into a state of chaos that you go, oh, whoops, I've disconnected from my higher self. So when you go into the higher self and you learn how to connect to that and feel these feelings of peace and stability and calm and love and joy, and when I connect to my higher self, I'm in a state of bliss and ecstasy. Some days, like some days, it is I almost can't contain it. I don't know what to do with it all. So notice what it feels like for you. Write down those adjectives so that you can pay attention to when you feel those good feelings, when you're in a state of good feelings like love and joy and bliss and gratitude, and you're having those elevated vibrations rolling through your body. That is a literal force. That is you. That's the energy of you. So pay attention to that and notice every time that you feel good like that, that's you. When you don't feel good and you're experiencing chaos or lack or something other than those good feelings, then you know that you've disconnected from your higher self. When you connect to your higher self, you're also connecting to the mind and the will of God, because they're one. So if you want to come to know God and his mind and his will for you, come to know yourself. Learn to operate from that place. So the first question that I have for you guys is, how do I know that I'm making right choices? How do I know that I am making right choices? I think one of the biggest fears that we have in life, and I've been talking to several people about this week, is nobody wants to be deceived and nobody wants to be wrong. We don't want to do anything wrong. Like I remember when my youngest son was growing up, he was the youngest and he was home alone with me for a whole entire year before he went to school with all the rest of the kids. And we played a lot of board games, and I taught him how to play chess. And he was like 4. But he picked up on some of the parts of the game until he got to the point when he got a little older that he got really good at that game. And he would say to me, every time I'd put my hand on one of the pieces to move a piece, he'd be like, "You're doing it wrong." But we're all afraid of doing it wrong, right? Nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to be deceived. Nobody wants to be that guy, right? But at some point in time, if you want to ascend, if you want to be on the ascended path, you have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to course correct. You have to be willing to be deceived at some point, because there's going to come a point in your progression, your spiritual progression, as you awaken spiritually, where there won't be anybody around you to tell you what the next right step is in front of you. That is not your ecclesiastical leader's job to do that. It's not your mommy's job. It's not even God's job to tell you what the next right step is in front of you. At some point, you're going to have to lose that grip on hanging on his every word, and you stand in the sovereignty of your own beingness and operate as a divine being just as he does. So how do I know I'm making the right choice? Well, I could sum it up into one sentence: just be. It's not even a sentence. Just be. Learn to stand into the sovereignty and the solidarity of your own beingness. And that's not always easy to do, because often when you're on a very ascended path and you're awakening spiritually, and the rest of the world around you, or maybe your family or your close knit culture or community around you is not yet at that level, and you look around you and you think, who else is stepping out into the darkness in this way that I can latch onto? Nobody. That can be a scary feeling for some people. I remember when I first started learning quantum healing techniques, and I literally, we were doing this work many times a day, clearing out old limiting beliefs, false limiting beliefs, and emotions, and just stuff, just data sitting on your hard drive, right? We were doing it multiple times a day. We were in partnerships, and I did that for like 6 to 8 months straight. And I got to a point where I I kind of woke up one morning and I went, whoa, I feel very different. Like, who am I? Where am I? I felt as if someone had picked me up and put me on a different planet, because I felt the stripping away of all this old programming. Oftentimes you think that the old programming is who you are, and it isn't. So when you learn how to strip away everything that is not you, and then pick up the pieces that you then choose to own, like, what are my beliefs? What do I believe? What do I choose now that I'm not intentionally being programmed by someone else? Sometimes that can be, I'm not going to call it a scary experience, but it does feel unfamiliar to strip away old limiting beliefs that you thought were a part of your identity. So your fixed mental positions on things, what you think you know, that is not who you are. And it's not the sum total of you, what you think you know. Because often on the ascended path, what you think you know is constantly being scrapped and revised over and over. I've been trying to write the same damn book for the last 5 years, and I keep going back to the old book going, oh, well, I don't believe that anymore, and that's not true for me anymore, and neither is that. So I'm struggling with that process, because I don't sit for very long on the same fixed mental positions as I used to. And I don't create a false limiting identity for myself out of those fixed mental positions either. I keep an open heart and an open mind as to where my soul is going for learning. So, how do I know I am making the right choices? Open up your mics. We're going to, or you can type it into the chat box if you guys want to. I want feedback. I want to know how you guys do it. How do you, or do you have a process where you know that you are standing in your own truth or the right thing for you in the moment? Give me some feedback. What do you guys do? Come on, you guys, there's a ton of you on here. Okay, Jill, go ahead.
When I feel the burning of the spirit inside, lots of times it will accompany reading the scriptures. I'll have a question and pray. And usually my answers come through the scriptures or words from the prophets or apostles. And when I feel that burning or something stands out to me and like just repeats over and over in my mind, and I see it from a different light and I feel that burning inside, that helps me to know this is my answer.
Good. You've come to discover what it feels like inside of your body for truth to be there, right? What does truth feel like inside of my body? Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? While I'm waiting.
Janet.
Oh, go ahead. Janet. Yep.
Okay. I'm on the road, so I want to make sure. For me, it's usually a feeling. I just get so moved by the spirit that I move to tears, and that's usually how I feel is my guiding star that lets me know.
Good. Yeah. Do you guys also find that it's really subtle and that it's really faint sometimes? Like it's barely there, like a barely even a whisper, but it's there. And sometimes um, it's hard to trust that, especially when a lot is riding on the line. Like if it's a big decision and there's so much riding on that, sometimes it can be really difficult to trust that faint feeling, right? So a lot of people use the terminology feeling the spirit. I am feeling the spirit. Or God told me to do this, or God told me to do that. What does that feel like inside of your body? Give me adjectives. What is it? How do you guys experience it? I know for me, years ago when I was first developing this ability, I had to ask multiple times, Lord, show me what yes feels like in my body today. Show me what no feels like in my body today. Um, oh, it looks like I missed some questions in the chat. What about just pain, not illness, like muscle aches? Yes, yes. Data that sits on your hard drive. Your body is like a computer. And so if there's unprocessed or corrupted data sitting on your hard drive that needs to be resolved or processed in any way, it can show up as pain and muscle aches. Yes. Your body's always talking to you. So listen to it. What is or who is our higher self? Ooh, that's a good question. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Dreams, intuition, pondering. Thanks, Toby Lynn, for sharing that. Anybody else, if you guys want to unmute, you can also share that way. Undeniable peace. It doesn't always come immediately, but it comes. Okay, good. Thanks for sharing that. For me, it's softer. This is Sandy. Softer and peaceful. Good. Did I not speak peace unto your soul, unto your spirit? Okay. How do I know I'm making the right decisions? Well, the first thing I think for me personally that I had to do was I had to learn how to discern what it feels like to feel truth in my body. Where do I feel truth in my body? This is a lot like the work that we engage in when you guys are clearing out negative, unhealthy, limiting beliefs inside your body. And I ask you, what do you feel and where do you feel that? And you know what you feel and where you feel it. It feels heavy. I feel it in my heart, or I feel a pain in my big toe, or I feel an aching in my gut, or whatever. You guys can discern what darkness feels like that sits on your hard drive. So you can also use those same techniques and tools to discern what light feels like when it's flowing through you. Anybody else? How do I know I'm making the right choice? How do I know I'm doing the right thing? For me, step one is learn what it feels like and where do you feel that. I know personally for me, when I am getting truth and it's coming from a specific person, I guess, or being on the other side of the veil, like godly beings or the divine ones, whatever you want to call them, um, God the Father, the Divine Mother, Christ, we can speak to so many people through the veil. And oftentimes, when they share truth with you, nuggets of truth with you, or bestow truth upon you, you may notice that you'll feel it in different ways from different people. So, for me, for example, I know when I'm feeling truth from God the Father, I feel it in the root chakra. I feel a burning in the root chakra. When I receive truth from Christ, I feel it in the heart center. So you can also get really specific in asking those kinds of questions. What do I feel? Where do I feel it? Who is this from? Who is sending me this information? And then learn how to trust that your body cannot tell a lie. Your body is giving you accurate truthful information, right? So trust those instincts, trust those promptings, those intuitions, the premonitions, the feelings that you guys are describing. I would love if you could get even more descriptive in your wording. about when you feel the spirit. Like, get more descriptive. What does it mean to feel the spirit? What are the adjectives? Is it a light and fluffy feeling? Is it a burning sensation? Is it a peaceful sensation? Do you feel sensation? Or is it just a premonition? Um, Sometimes people just have a knowing. There's just this feeling of, I know that that's truth. It resonates with me. I can feel a vibration. So,
When I
oh, go ahead.
when I feel when I'm working with clients and I can feel the energy drop or a void or a hollow or a coldness, I know that there's some kind of truth that's missing, because when I'm with them and I can feel the truth, it feels solid, it feels correct. I also can see it in my mind. It's like a train. And when the train's going, the truth is going along. And then all of a sudden, if there's a falseness that comes up or a deception, the train will fall off the track. And in my mind, it's like, what the heck just happened? Okay, back up. Something's not right here. And I have to back up and go, okay, what just happened at this part? Because the train fell off the track. And I know a lot of my clients go like, what kind of train do you see? And it's a word train. I see each word. And as each word goes by, I can tell that it's truth, and um, it feels solid. And then, like I said, it just the train falls off the track.
Yeah.
That's
That's fascinating. I love that. Heidi also says you can ask to feel. So if you're a person that doesn't necessarily feel feelings deeply or see things in your mind, then you can ask for those things. You can ask to have the expansion of those gifts given to you as well. But start with where you are. Like I love how visionary you are, Toby Lynn, that you actually see things in your mind. It plays out that way. For me, when I first started, it was incredibly subtle, and I was constantly second guessing. But I would ask, what does truth feel like in my body today? And it would feel, sometimes I would write down in my journal, it feels like a sigh of relief. It feels like I got good news. So I would write that down, what the feeling was. Um, and then I would ask the same question in the opposite direction. What does darkness feel like inside of my body today? And then it would feel like a dip down in the frequency or in the vibration. Like it would feel like maybe I got some bad news, or maybe I told a lie. Or so I would write down in the description in my journal that day, this is what darkness feels like inside me. This is what light feels like inside me.
I have a question, Janet.
Yeah, go ahead.
I see that you're focused on the word feel, which is very interesting to me because the scriptures say past feeling. So I'm curious as to what is the feeling part? Can you explain to me why it's so important to feel light, to feel darkness? What is your thoughts on those?
Um, I don't think there's a cookie cutter experience for everybody. It's more of, what is the experience for you when you know there's light flowing through you? What is that experience like for you? For me, I am very much an empathic person. I feel things, I see things, I experience things, I have these knowings. But I'm very much a feelings type person. My husband is not that way. Well, I'm not going to say that. He's more of an empath now than he used to be. But in the beginning, he didn't know what he felt. Like I would take him through these exercises and I'd say, "What do you feel inside of your body when you talk about this problem that we're working on? What do you feel, and where do you feel that belief?" And he'd say, "I don't feel anything. Like I'm not feeling anything." He would have these knowings. And so we'd have to start there and work on that. And then eventually he was able to develop his empathic abilities and gifts. So,
One of the thoughts that just came to me is that to feel is a sensitivity. It's a sensitivity skill.
yeah.
Huh. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So you have 5 physical senses in your body, right? So when you go outside and you jump into a lake, you're going to experience that in a multiplicity of different ways. You're going to feel the wetness on your skin. the sensation of it, to the touch. You may smell the murkiness of the water. You might taste it. You might hear the rushing sounds. Like, you will experience the water in lots of different ways. We call that sensuality. And oftentimes, people, when they feel truth in their body, they will feel it in the sacral chakra, which is all about sexuality and sensuality. It's about the five physical senses. Well, your body has five senses, your spirit has more senses than that. So you can sense things on a spirit level through a multiplicity of different ways as well. And you can learn how to develop those different senses, spirit senses. So that's what we're talking about. Some people hear things. Some people are clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, like there's multiple different ways. And if you're only experiencing it in one way, then, like, what, I can't remember, I think it was Heidi who said you can pray to ask for those feelings. Stacy says, darkness feels icky and confusing. Good. So those are great descriptive words. Get really good at using your adjectives. Write it down for a few days if you need to, until you get to the point where you're like, oh, boom, there's darkness going on inside. I need to clear and process and release that. Maybe it's an unhealthy or limiting belief. Maybe it's something that's keeping you stuck or holding you back, or whatever, a pain from the past. But as long as you learn how to recognize the darkness within, because every individual being has a responsibility to do their inner work, process this out until you become a vessel that is just filled with light and there is no more darkness. Lori, did you have something?
I do. I was going to say, one of the first things that I learned, well, I'm going to step back for a second. When you're face to face talking to somebody, you see the physical features, you see their body language, you see all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting, after a couple of days after Martin had been killed, that a member from my congregation came and talked to me when I'd come home to get some stuff. And the first thing he told me is, you need to become aware of how Martin's going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, the first thing, well, I won't see him. And he's like, and I'm going to use some of the words we've used. You need to feel, you need to hear him, because he will talk to you in a different way than you're used to. And so I had to become more sensitive. I had to get out of my head,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to allow myself to notice the things around me. And in those first few days of him being gone, um, there were messages and songs. There was music. Uh, to give you a cute but a funny example is, and it's something that as widows and widowers we go through, just days after he would been gone, you get these stupid feelings like, does he still love me? Is he missing me? And it's like, for goodness sakes, it's only been a few minutes in his time. But I was driving back to Calgary to go get some stuff, and I didn't drive with the radio on, and a song came to my mind, and I just kept driving. And something that he and I did all the time was we sang together in the car, and I just kept driving, and the words kept going through my mind again, and I ignored them again. I was a little tenacious. I'm better now. But the words went through my mind again, and finally it was like on the third time I started to sing the words, and it was a message from my husband. And the words were, I don't want no other love. Baby, it's just you I'm dreaming of. And then I knew, in that very moment, he's totally aware of what I'm thinking and feeling. And, I have learned through quantum healing, um, I get the ringing in my ears. So if I get a ringing in my left ear, he was left-handed. I go through anybody who's left-handed, and he's on top of my list. When I get ringing in my right ear, I start with my dad and I go down the list. And when I say their name out loud, just like that, the ringing in my ear stops.
Right.
So it's becoming aware, being sensitive, and I had a friend this week said, and he's not into all of this quantum healing. He said, get out of your head. And when you feel like you need to do something, and I'm on a new path, he said, don't even doubt it. Just follow the path, and Jesus Christ will lead you the rest of the way. Just don't doubt. Just stay in that energy and follow it.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't make sense to you, just
Yeah.
follow it, because something's coming and I have no idea.
Yeah. And it typically won't make sense.
Nope.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That was perfect. I love that. You can do that with God. The God connection that you have in your life, if you are seeking to connect with the divine ones and you want leadership, you want mentoring, you want counseling from the God family, you can do the same thing that Lori just described. Get to know them. Get to know them by name. Get to know them by feel. Get to know when they step into your presence. I want to talk about this at the end, actually, how to discern the discerning of spirits and how to develop that. But thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else that wanted to share? How do I know that I am receiving truth? How do I know that I'm doing the right thing or making the right choice? I think some of the concepts that came up, and just stop me, interrupt me if you feel like you need to, please unmute yourself. Some of the things that came up in this discussion was discerning what you feel inside your body. How is your body communicating? How is your body process truth? I know for me, I just don't have time to constantly be casting out the darkness. I don't have time for that. Um, eh, I'm so far beyond that stage anymore that my intention when I get up in the morning and my feet hit the ground running is I will only communicate with and connect with those beings who walk in the highest light. And if that ain't you, I don't got time for you. I'm not paying attention to those things. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of how I roll anymore. I just trust that whatever I get that's coming through, my intention is that I'm always going to be facing the light, and that's where my focus is, and that's where my heart is. And so there's no room for the darkness at that point. When you stand and face the sun, right? You're facing the direction of the sun, then that's where you're going. Then all the dark shadows will fall behind you and become more irrelevant. So that's kind of how I operate anymore. It's not necessarily a discerning between, is this good or bad, right or wrong, dark or light, la la la. It's now, okay, this is where I'm going. This is my intention. I don't have time for the darkness. I'm not focused on that. I am headed towards the light. And even if I am deceived, even if I do trip myself up and get deceived, I know that God knows where my heart is. He knows where my intentions are, and there's room for error in that. So I don't really worry about it too much because I know where I'm facing. I know where I'm headed. So learn to discern what your body's telling you. What do you feel? Where do you feel it? Learn to trust those instincts. Get really good at noticing and paying attention. Write it down. Use descriptive words so that when those feelings come back, you're like, oh, that's what that is. Learn to trust that. And then the third thing that I always tell people is act on it in the moment. Act right now. Do something to get you in motion, moving in the direction of whatever that choice is, or whatever that answer is that you're receiving in the moment. Like what Lori said, she started singing. She resisted it. But then when she surrendered and succumbed and trusted the instinct or the feeling or the present, then the witness came. Now, often God's not going to just lay out the yellow brick road for you and give you all of the pieces and where to step and how to step ahead of time. It usually doesn't happen that way. Usually you have to step out into the unknown, step out into the darkness, not know where you're stepping, and you're going to make mistakes. You have to allow for room for that and stop being so worried that you're going to mess up. Stop being so worried that you're going to be deceived. Just Just act, and act boldly. And then what you can do is you can discern whether or not that choice was the right choice. How do you do that? Unmute yourselves. How do you do that? You guys know this. How do you discern whether or not you've done the right thing once you've acted upon instinct from your higher self?
I'll share.
Okay.
I find that sometimes I kind of had a similar experience as you, where I did so much healing that I actually I needed a healing for all the healings that I'd done, because it was just too much too fast.
Yeah.
So my whole perception on knowing truth and making mistakes and decisions in your life has completely changed. And I've stepped into a new paradigm, and I'm sure I'll continue to step into new paradigms on this topic as well. But the biggest thing that I've been noticing right now is that when we make mistakes, when we make choices that we think are the wrong decision or the wrong thing, it's actually not. This is a part of our learning, and we chose it. We chose it for a very specific education that our soul wanted to learn. This is why we come to Earth. So what we may think is a major disaster and a screw up or whatever, it's not.
It's experience.
It's not. That is our experience, and it's beautiful. And sometimes we need to take ourselves out of the guilt and the shame of oh shoot, I broke a commandment of God. I screwed up, I made someone feel bad, whatever it may be. Take the guilt and the shame out of that and see it for what it is, as this was actually a very beautiful learning experience for me.
Yeah. God is not condemning.
Whatever it may be.
Right. Right. God is not condemning. He's so quick to forgive and doesn't require that you sit down in guilt and shame. So thanks for sharing that, Charisse. Anybody else? Marcy says, by the fruits you will know. Thank you. I was just going to say this and you brought it up. Thanks for bringing it up. I always look at what comes from it. Does it inspire, bring light, lift others, give peace? Does good come from it? Is it tough love for a bigger purpose? Ooh, I love that. Yeah, you can tell if it's of the light because the benefits will be universal. It won't just benefit you. It will benefit all. So you gotta, how do you know you've done the right thing? You have to look at what the fruits are. If the fruits bear themselves out and they are good fruits, and good is coming of it, and whether or not good is coming of it. Look at the feelings, look at the effects. Then you can determine whether or not that was a good choice, whether or not you were acting in alignment with your highest will. It's not necessarily what is God's will for me, but what is my own will? What do I want? Okay, so let's move into, if I don't have any more comments on that, we're going to move into how do I know what the highest will is? How do I know what my will is? This is kind of an important thing if you're going to learn how to stand in confidence in your own sovereignty. So the first step, in my opinion, and you guys can write this down if you feel impressed to and add to it, please do. But these are just my notes. The first step is to tap into your higher self. Learn how to do that. Learn how to discern whether or not you're coming from your ego or your brain, or whether or not you're coming from true divinity within you, that divine intelligence within you. You've got to have a gauge as to who am I accessing inside of here? Am I accessing the intellect only? Am I accessing my ego, or am I accessing divine infinite intelligence? So that's step number one. Step number two is what is wanted, right? Where have we heard those words before? I can't tell you how many hundreds of times I have gone to the Lord and expected for him to just drop answers or information or the next right step onto me so that I can move forward and progress in my life. And he always comes back with, well, what do you want? You need to tell me what you want. And that leads me into just some imagery that I got when I was learning these parts and pieces. Was he opened up a vision to me in my mind, and he said, Janet, it's like you're on a bicycle, and I want to guide you, and I want to lead you, and I want to help you steer in the direction that you are going. I don't have an agenda for you. This isn't my path. It's not my bike. It's not my circus, not my monkeys. This is all about you. So he said to me, I cannot guide a bicycle that's stationary. You have to be in motion. So once you're in motion, then I can give you guidance as to where you are choosing to go. And he also said, and stop blaming everything on me. Stop going about your life, making all of these big decisions and choices in your life, and then saying, the Lord told me to, or God made me do it. Right? He's like, that is not on me. That is on you. Every choice that you've ever made is on you. I don't have the agenda set. I'm not the puppeteer and you the little puppet. So anyway, I learned a good lesson from that, in that I need to be in motion. So how do we put ourselves in motion? You have to choose. You have to first determine, what are the desires of your heart? What do you desire the most? What do you want? Tell me what you want. So it's good to journal this stuff out. Write it down. Make a list. Every year at the beginning of the year, and we've done this before. I did it at the beginning of this year with you guys. I write a list of 100 desires of my heart, even if they're frivolous. I don't care. It's okay to have desires. So I write down 100 desires of my heart every year at the beginning of the year. It's fascinating to see how many of those desires just automatically come to me. At the end of the year, when you get to the end of the year and you look at the desires that you wrote down at the beginning of the year, it's really phenomenal to see. Without too much effort, those things will just by the law of attraction, like a magnet, be drawn into your experience. So you have to get clear on what you desire. Then once I did that, then the Lord said, now, Janet, you have to choose. You have to set yourself in motion and pick a choice, make a choice. The choice is yours. There is no good, bad, right, or wrong choice for you in this moment. It's all dependent on, where are you desiring to go? What are you desiring to have, be, do, or experience? And once you have set that as a precedence, you've outlined that and became really clear with it, I find it's best if you speak it out. You use the vibration of your soul to put that vibration of sound out into the world, because now it can become physical matter. Now it can become a part of this dimension with you, because you used vibration to speak that out into the world. So I actually speak, I choose, and then I fill in the blank. One day I was out in my backyard, and I can't remember this setting, but I was out in my backyard looking at all these different things that I wanted to do to the landscaping of my backyard. And I was like, I am ready for new landscaping. I'm ready for new plants. I'm ready for new this. And I spoke out exactly what I wanted. It wasn't even 8 hours later, my husband came home from work and had received a bonus at work, and he had stopped off at Costco and picked up a whole bunch of beautiful foliage and landscaping, and said, hey, I came across some abundance today, and so I thought I would surprise you on the way home. From, like, he had this truckload full of stuff. It manifested that very day. Speak it out, set the intention, speak it out, make your choice. Step number 3, you got to act. Once you have made the choice, now you put yourself in motion. Either speak out what you're going to, or move in the direction of what you have chosen. If it's like a job opportunity, and you've made the choice, get up off your butt and go in that direction and do something to engage you in becoming a body in motion. So that's step 3, is act. Step in. Sometimes you have to step out into the darkness, into the unknown first, and you might not know what the right answer is. You might have to just step out to discover what the right direction or what the right path is. And when you get put in motion, you start pedaling the bike and the bike starts moving, then the Lord knows, God knows where you're going. God knows where your higher self is going, and he will help to divert or direct or steer you in the right direction. Okay, we have another comment. Marcy says, I think our will is God's will. Exactly. That's truth. Whoops, I just lost it. Hold on. Oh my goodness. I'm going to read it to you. Hold on. Okay. I think our will is God's will. He wants all for us. To experience all things, if we have the desire, he placed it there, so it's his will. What we want, he wants to. We stop our progress from doubt. And when we think that we are not good enough, just asking if it's his will is just very respectful and beautiful, but he wants it for us too. Yeah, I agree with that. Whatever the desires of your heart are, is also what God wants for you. He wants you to be in a state of joy and bliss and happiness. So if you're walking down the street, you look into a window, you see a beautiful outfit or a dress, and you're like, oh, I love that. I love that so much. I desire that. I choose that. There's nothing wrong with that. That is not, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being in a state of love for something that you choose or you desire. Step 4, God will help you steer. We already talked about that. Someone I talked to earlier this morning said training wheels are essential for a time, but that's only while you're learning how to steer. Eventually, God is not looking for a bunch of puppets. God is not looking for a bunch of, what's the word? Slaves is a harsh word, but God wants to raise up sovereign beings. He wants you to stand in the solidarity of your own light and become as he is, which is a sovereign being who can stand in his own light. And as you learn to do that, then your light gets bigger and it gets brighter. If you want to know the mind and will of God, come to know yourself. I'm going to say that again. If you want to know the mind and will of God, come to know yourself. Come to know the desires of your heart. Come to know what your gifts and talents are. Come to know who you are on every level. It's your responsibility to know yourself in all ways. And so when you get triggered in life and you have trauma and drama show up, it's because your higher self has called those experiences to you as a reminder that, hey, you have something that's blocking the expression of your higher self. Could you please deal with that? Clean the garbage out of your hard drive, and then we can move forward in the direction of being congruent and in alignment with who we are and where we're going. Your higher self already knows who you are and where you're going. So, and you don't need, a lot of people focus on past lives. Who was I in a past life? Who have I been? And if you subscribe to those beliefs, or if you subscribe to any of that stuff, I don't know that it's really important that you know names. I don't know that it's really important that you know who you've been or where you've been, as much as it is that you know how to tap into the essence of who you are now in this moment, in the divine, infinite, eternal now. That's the more important question to be asking. Not who have I been, but who am I now in this moment? Can you describe the dynamic of being sovereign while still relying on God? Yes. Oh, I love that question. Yes. Like we said earlier, in the beginning, you do need training wheels. You do need to learn how to rivet yourself to those divine ones that are mentoring you. So for me personally, and I know there's lots of different beliefs in this group, but for me personally, it's Christ. So he's my mentor. I have other mentors too, as well, who help me and they guide me and they help steer me in the right direction. I also have mentors that are living beings, like people that do this kind of work that help me get more clear and focused in where I'm going. And so mentoring with someone, whether it's a divine being through the veil or mentoring with someone in this dimension, can be a really good first step in you learning how to develop sovereignty, especially if you're connecting with people who can see your higher self. I know that that was the case for me when I was first stepping out into this. I connected with a mentor who was really gifted and talented and could see things, and he saw my higher self, and he really helped me develop the visuals, develop the actual what it felt like to tap in to my higher self, what it felt like to stand in my own beingness, what it felt like to just be and operate from that space. And once I was really good at that, then I no longer needed that mentoring or that guidance or that help anymore. And I could stand on my own 2 feet, stand in my own light, and trust my own light is God's light. I hope that makes sense. While you're relying on God, there's nothing wrong with doing that till the end of time, because if you know how to step in and tap in and tune in to your higher self and come from that place and operate in that space and let that part of you navigate. Let's put some words to that actually for a minute. So when you let your higher self navigate, number one, you're operating in that space of what it feels like to tap into your higher self. So when we go in and we're breathing and we're softening and we're letting go of tension and we're expanding and spreading out, there is a specific sensation in your body that's happening when you're experiencing your higher self. You're either feeling peace, or love or joy or light, or however you describe it. I always describe it as like every time I go inside, it's like my higher self's leaning up against the doorway going, hey, hi, I'm love. I'm peace. Welcome home. And it always feels good. You can tell you're tapped into your higher self because it feels good. You can tell you're not tapped into your higher self because it doesn't. It feels disconnected. And that's another way to describe when you're experiencing darkness inside of you. There will be a disconnect of some sort, or a blockage, or a stumbling block. So the dynamic of being sovereign while still relying on God, I think that is learning how to come from within instead of come from the ego. At the beginning of this year, I handed you guys out a handout that showed the symptoms of what it feels like to be connected to your higher self and what it feels like to be connected to your egoic self, and what those symptoms feel like and look like. So when you start identifying with those symptoms, what are the symptoms, then you can go, oh, okay, I'm connected to my higher self right now in this moment because this is what it feels like. So now I can move about my day in this space. And as long as I'm operating from this good space, this space of peace or love or joy or whatever it is that you describe when you tap in, it will be the right thing. It will be the right thing. It will be your highest will. It will be God's highest will, because you're acting in alignment with your higher self. Lori says, we laugh together. Laughter is healing. Yes, you do. You are good at laughing, Lori. I miss talking to you. Whoops, sorry. That was just for me. Okay. Let's kind of chisel this down a little bit more. When you're tapped into your higher self, you're probably going to get well, you're going to notice the feeling is good, right? You're going to notice the fruits are good because it feels good to be connected to your higher self. So really take your awareness, go inside, breathe and soften, let go of all that tension, find that peace in there. And then once you've done that and you know that you can operate from that space, learn to be there more than you're not. Train yourself to come from that space throughout the day. And as you do that, you'll notice that intuitions will bubble up. You'll, being in a state of just beingness is like being in a state of surrender. It's surrendering to your highest will. But surrender doesn't mean that you stop moving forward and you just sit down and you do nothing. And being in a state of beingness, just being, doesn't mean that you sit down and do nothing. It means that when you're connected to your higher self and you're surrendered to that divine intelligence within you, then you act. And the acting or the doing will be a byproduct of who you be. So you'll either be prompted or you'll receive intuition to either go do something, go talk to someone, change up the setting, separate yourself from a situation, or act upon a situation. And so you got to pay attention because those things will bubble up intuitively as you're tapped into your higher self. How I learned it was doing it every single day. I got really good at learning how to go inside, find where I'm storing limiting beliefs and just old emotional garbage and baggage and gunk that's sitting on my hard drive. And I learned how to process and release it every day. And then I got very comfortable and very familiarized with what my higher self feels like, so that if I ever went through a drama or a trauma in my day, because trauma and drama will yank you out of that space. You get into a car accident, it's going to yank you out of your higher self because you go into a fear or you'll go into pain. You get sick, it'll yank you out of your higher self. You get into an argument, that will yank you out of your higher self. So just notice, oh, whoops, I popped out. I'm going to go through the process that I know of to return and go back within, breathe and soften, expand out so that I can connect to my higher self again and move forward. So that's what it looks like for me personally. Intuition will tell me what the next right step is to do, and then I will just engage and do it. Okay. I have like 2 minutes for questions. Do you guys have any more questions that you want to spill out into the chat, or unmute yourselves? You can. I'm just going to go over my notes to see if I missed anything that I wanted to talk about today. How can I keep my mind from hijacking me? How do I know I'm not crazy? Oftentimes, when you are on an ascended path and you're waking up spiritually to your higher self, you're going to receive promptings and direction that doesn't feel familiar to you, because on an ascended path, you haven't been there yet. It's where you're going. And so you're going to feel unfamiliar a lot, often, because you're ascending. And yeah, people in your waking life may even try to convince you that you're nuts, you're crazy, you're delusional, something's wrong with you. You're seeing visions, you're hearing spirits, you need medication. So how do you know that your mind is not hijacking you? Again, go back to that handout. You know what? I will post the handout in the Facebook group underneath this video once it publishes, for the higher self versus the egoic self. You guys can go open up that handout and read it. It's a really good handout for helping you to discern whether or not you're tapped in or whether you're just following the whims of your ego. Okay, so that's how you know. How you know you're not crazy is you're tapped into your higher self. You better get familiar with what that feels like. Teach your body to remember those feelings. Confidence in acting in sovereignty. How do you gain confidence in acting in your own sovereignty? Well, you have to practice. You have to choose. You have to step out. You have to make choices, and then you have to act on those choices. You have to own the choices that you make. God didn't make you do it. No one's making you do it. No one's forcing you. You have free will. You always do, you always have, and you always will. Unless you hand it over to someone. And usually when you do that, it never ends well. So honor your own agency. Learn to choose. Make those choices, be accountable for those choices. And if you decide that that wasn't the right choice for you, then you can course correct. It's no big deal. The atonement's there to cover all that stuff. You're fine. You don't need to worry about the culture judging you because you made a mistake or you messed up. So exercise, stand in the fullness of your own agency. I just had a thought. I'm not going to say it though, but it made me laugh. Okay. Stand in your agency all the while aligning with God's will. And you know whether or not it's God's will because it will also be your will. It'll be your highest will. So if you're seeking for what the highest will is for you in your life, you will know if you're tapped in and in alignment with the highest will because it will feel like your higher self. It'll feel good to you. Receiving guidance from heaven. I do want to share just a little bit on that. A lot of you guys who have come through my course last year and who are coming through Spiritual Awakening this year, you're starting to have experiences with divine beings coming and connecting with you, just as Lori talked about with where her husband has definitely been doing that with her. Well, more people on the earth or more people in the spirit dimension than you can count are seeking to try to connect with you. So you need to understand, you need to know how to discern what that feels like and how to discern who's there for me. So oftentimes people will say that they'll feel a vibration, they will have a sensation, like you know what it feels like to be in a crowded room and someone's got eyes on you and they're staring at you and you can feel the stare, you can feel their presence being projected onto you. Sometimes when heaven is trying to communicate with you and connect with you, you might feel that. You might feel that eyes are on you. You might feel a change in temperature, like it'll go from hot to cold. You might feel a change in vibration. So I know that for me, when it first started to happen to me, I felt this rushing, flowing feeling between my ears, like almost slightly like I'm underwater. Like, you know how sometimes you can feel in your, maybe it's just me, but you can feel a rushing feeling in your head. Often that's because there has been a shift in the vibrational frequency and you're picking up on somebody else's energy. So you can step into that energy and just say, hey, who's here for me and what do you want me to know? Always, 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 always before you do that, you want to set your intention that you're only going to connect with beings who walk in the highest light because anybody can show up when you're just putting it out there and asking to connect with the other side, right? Other things, sometimes they'll show up in dreams. Sometimes you may just wake up in the middle of the night. I have this happen to me a lot. Wake up in the middle of the night and feel the presence of someone, either deceased or living. This is a really good example. So my oldest daughter, Jessica, when she was 14, had cancer. And when she was going through that year and a half of chemotherapy and all of the treatments and everything, we became very connected, very close. And I got incredibly familiarized with her spirit, especially when she was on life support. You know, she was in the hospital and she was going through all this stuff. I couldn't communicate with her physically with her body, but I could feel her presence in the room. And I got really good at discerning her higher self and picking up on what that felt like to have her there. And even to this day, she now lives in Arizona. She's fine and she's great. She's really empathic too. But sometimes I will feel her presence step into the room and I'll be like, oh, hey, hi, Jessica. And then I'll text her and I'll say, your higher self was just here. And then she'll say, that's weird because I was just thinking about you. So there are no boundaries to this. Like it doesn't have to just be deceased people that are connecting with you. Sometimes somebody's higher self may be trying to get through or relay a message, or maybe you are trying to relay a message to someone else's higher self and trying to communicate something to them because perhaps you don't have a good enough relationship physically, mentally, right, with that person. So the only thing you can do is connect with their higher self. Anybody else have any other things that they want to add in regards to what does it look like for you to connect with heaven when other beings step into your presence? How do you know that they're there? What are the symptoms? Go ahead and unmute or type it into the chat box, and then I think we'll be done for the day.
If it's, I have something to say.
Yeah,
If
go ahead.
it's, I notice that when there's other presences that are there that are not for the highest and best of me or my clients or my family, I notice that there's a lot of interface, like mechanical or technical things don't work, like
Yeah.
the internet. I can't speak clearly. My words come out weird. Their words come out weird, like things like that. So lots of times you just have to, because they're always lurking. There's always negative influences lurking.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it just is easiest to just clear them, send them to God's light, whatever you do to do that.
Yeah. Clear your space, clean your vessel.
Yeah, almost every day. But as far as like good beings or beings of light that are there for you, I usually just know that someone is there. It's like coming home from school, like when you're in high school, coming home and you know whether your mom is in the house or not. You can't see her.
Yeah.
You can't, physically you don't know that she's there, but you just know she's there. You know
Right.
she's home.
Yeah, that's good.
That's how I manifest that, is just knowing that they're there. And yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I love that. Just knowing the presence. I always, how somebody taught it to me was, what does it feel like when you're sitting in the same room as someone you really love and care about, like your child or something? Close your eyes and imagine their essence, like just feel their presence with your eyes closed. Feel that presence. I noticed that before I had every one of my children, when I was in labor or about to go into labor, I could feel the presence or the essence of their higher self with me and around me at the time of their almost birth, right? So, and those, that experience or that distinction, like each soul has a distinct presence or feeling to it. Sometimes even I will get, like, I can smell them. I don't even know if that makes sense, but sometimes I'll have a fragrance come through, or words will flash through my mind, or I'll have imagery. When I first started experiencing that, stepping into other people's energy from through the veil and receiving guidance that way, I remember developing that first and then asking, who's here for me? And what do you need me to know? And so I started asking those questions. Then I started asking the questions of, would it be okay if I know your name? Would it be okay if I saw your face? Would it be okay if I see more or experience more of you? And then that started to develop out as well until it became almost a literal experience with them. So you can ask to develop that out and grow, but sometimes you have, well, most times you have to ask for those things to be developed. Jill says, how do I know what to do when I have inner conflict over a decision, especially when what I feel might be right seems to go against what I think is right? Ah, well, most of the time, what you feel is right is going to go against what you think is right, because your brain is not always your best friend. Your brain will tell you stories and make up lies about you that aren't true. And so you have to learn how to get out of your egoic head, out of your mind, and into your heart or into your higher self, and let that part of you navigate. And don't worry about whether or not it goes against the grain or goes against what you think it should be. This isn't about navigating through your life spiritually. Isn't about thinking. You're not going to get. You're not going to ascend to heaven because you are a good thinker. You're going to ascend to heaven because you learned how to tap into divine infinite intelligence. And that's not always just thinking. You can't get into divine infinite intelligence just through the mind. You have to get there through your higher self. And then the higher self will use the mind, obviously, as a tool to help you process. So, yes, they do work together. But oftentimes, what you think is right is not a part of your true identity, your higher self. That's just your thinking mind getting in the way. So sometimes when intuition comes in, it'll come in, it'll be instant, it'll be a little flash, and then it'll disappear, and then your brain will come in and try to talk you out of it. So learn how to discern the two voices. The adversary has quite a bit of influence over your intellect, your intelligent mind, but he has no influence whatsoever over your higher self. Your higher self is very sovereign and cannot be swayed. It cannot lose anything. It cannot die. It cannot run out of time. It cannot be pressured. It doesn't have a to-do list. Nothing can threaten your higher self. So learn to come from that space, learn to trust it explicitly. And then, and that part of you will operate the rest of you. The mind will come into alignment with it. Hopefully that makes sense. Always listen to your gut. Yes. You know, there's never been a time in my life, ever, where I listened to those inner stirrings from my soul and acted on those promptings where I was ever, what's the word? Where I ever felt like my higher self let me down. So your higher self knows who you are and where it's going. How did Satan get a quarter to leave their higher self then? You mean a third? I don't know. I think what Satan does, what Lucifer does, is he distracts you by getting you to create a false identity for yourself. And he creates the identities of, I'm not enough, I'll never measure up, I have to use brute force to prove this or to prove that so that people will notice me, or so that I can be enough. The adversary will always attack you at the identity level and make you feel as if you aren't enough somehow. I'm not good enough, smart enough, rich enough, funny enough, smart enough, pretty enough, intelligent enough, whatever it is. There is always lack, and he'll try to get you to create an identity for a fallen identity, false identity for yourself around that, so that you can prove to the world that you're enough. But again, that's how he does it. He makes you feel that there's something wrong with you, and that he didn't do it. that it's all you. There's something wrong with you, right? So you just have to call it out and say, get behind me, Satan, and don't talk to me that way ever again. I am a being of light. I'm a sovereign being. I stand in the highest light of the Lord, and you don't have the authority here, and you cannot talk to me that way. So it's when you buy into the lies and into the nonsense that you're then in his power and in his control, because you've bought into the lie, the darkness. So if you want to heal, if you want to move forward, if you want to step into your truth, your purpose, your passion, your power, you got to remove the darkness. And you're responsible for that. You're responsible for determining where that stuff is hiding on your hard drive, because you're the only one who can do it. You got to do your inner work. So ascended beings who become terrestrial and celestial beings are beings who have learned how to walk that ascended path of constantly clearing the darkness out and kicking it out, and being the full on expression of the light within. So great questions, you guys. Thank you so much. I already kept you 20 minutes over time. This was a good class. I will post the notes and the handouts in the members area on my website. If you want to purchase access to the members area, you can go to janetthurgood.com and just click on courses, and you can get all of the replays of all of these calls that we do, plus the handouts, plus everything else. I hope that you guys got a lot from this class today. I think this was a really important discussion to have. Everybody take care. I love you all, and have a great rest of your day. Mwah. Okay, see ya. Bye.